I was diagnosed out of nowhere, a rare type of cancer. It came back, stage 4 breast cancer, and it was in my liver. I thought I was doing everything right. I had just been at Coachella a month before, like raging and having the best time of my life. And they were like, "Oh, you have stage 4 cancer." I was like, "What are you talking about?" Those words are not ones you ever want to hear.
And today, my question is, how do you heal yourself when life completely knocks you down? You seem to have been going on the uphill trajectory of life, slaying it in every way, and the unimaginable happens. You get a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, literally at the peak of your life. Well, that is my guest today, Darlene Cordero.
I had a full panic attack. I didn't have a panic attack about the diagnosis. I had a panic attack about asking for help. It was very vulnerable for me.
I know that for Asians, we're supposed to say no. We're supposed to say, no, it's okay. No, I don't need that. No, I don't need your help.
Anyone can feel this way, feeling isolated, alone, feeling as if you don't know what's next. Stage 4 cancer.
So how is that the grief of the death of the former version of Darlene?
Yeah, it was wild.
Hey loves, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are tuning into this. It helps grow the show more than you know. Thank you so much again and enjoy. So love, we've worked together. You've worked on several different amazing humans and their brands, and you've been the brains and literally the ninja behind a lot of wellness entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
And you've written your book, The Healer's Playbook, which I absolutely love. It's like a coffee table book. It's so chic and it's so great. So congratulations.
Thank you.
But I want to start because you also have your own healing journey, and we just need to share that with the Brave Table fam as we open up today.
Yes, thank you for having me. It means so much to connect, document, and share our lives with others. As you know, as we share, we are able to inspire other people to do the same. So I am so grateful for that, and grateful for the opportunity to share my story of healing, which started about 5 years ago. I was diagnosed with early breast cancer. It's called DCIS. And at that time, it really created a shift in my life, as many of us that go through diagnosis or a shift or grief of someone that's passed, something really that rocks our world. I had that in 2018. And it really changed everything for me. At the time, I had returned to banking. And so my world was very in the masculine and very much gone back to the thing that I knew to do, which was working in those environments, growing up in New York City. And I was diagnosed with this cancer, which was very early. And I felt very lucky that I caught it so quickly. And at the time, and that really shifted me into going into yoga and becoming a certified yoga teacher at the time. And because I did that, I was sharing that on social. One of my old colleagues was going to work at Deepak Chopra's company, and she said, "Hey, do you want to come over and work at Chopra Global?" And I said, "Absolutely, get me out of banking." I don't know what I was doing going back there. I talk a little bit about that in the book, and just the decisions we make and how we are realigned and redirected when we're not going the right path. And I am so grateful because it is very intertwined. My healing journey is very intertwined with my work, and I ended up working at Chopra Global, where we'll talk a little bit more about that and the work I did there with the community, with the brand, with the vision of all of his work through the decades. And last year, I was diagnosed out of nowhere, a rare type of cancer. It came back, stage 4 breast cancer, and it was in my liver. I thought I was doing everything right? I moved to California. I eat really well. I meditate. I regularly take care of my body. I mean, there wasn't anything I wasn't doing. And so it was a big surprise for me when that occurred. It was a shock, honestly.
Wow.
And I've been in that part of my life and this new chapter of my life since May of last year, 2023.
Wow. Love.
Mhm. Yeah.
Stage 4 cancer.
Yeah.
Like,
Those words, those words
yeah.
are not ones you ever want to hear.
Mm. And also because you were already in the healing world. I mean,
Mhm.
working with Deepak Chopra, you're kind of in the ins and outs of all of the people, the brand partnerships. You're kind of at the echelon of all of the latest and greatest wellness
Yeah.
tools.
Mhm.
And then here you are, you have this diagnosis. You also are a mom as
Yeah.
well. You're
Yeah.
single mama.
Mhm.
And so how did you what were like the first few days like? Because
Yeah.
I can only imagine not good.
Yeah, it was wild. It was so wild. I didn't believe it. I had just been at Coachella a month before, like raging and having the best time of my life. And they're like, "Oh, you have stage 4 cancer." I was like, "What are you talking about?" So it was very much about like for in the beginning I had, which might resonate with people that have had diagnosis. I felt guilty, like I had done something wrong. In the beginning, there was a lot of guilt, as if like grief, right? We go through it's very similar. It's like I didn't do this. What did I do wrong? Why am I in this place? Why me?
Well, and I want to stop you for a second though,
Yeah.
because you know, I think a lot of times you're right. People don't associate a medical diagnosis with grief and the
Mm,
grief of, well, what if it didn't happen? And the grief
mhm.
of my old life. And
Yes.
can you
Oh,
just take us
totally.
through that? Because a month before, you're partying at Coachella, you're doing all the things, you're in the meet and greets. We
Yeah.
had an event together for Highest Self
No.
Institute.
No.
And so and then you have this diagnosis. So how is that the grief of the death of
Mhm.
the former version of Darlene?
Yeah. I think in the beginning I was just really processing my dreams. It's like I'm like visually going there, like as we're talking about this. And I remember being in that bed and my friends came over and oh my God, my friends. Wow. I'm so lucky. I get emotional about it because I feel so lucky. Like you said, I'm surrounded by the most amazing people. I'm very fortunate to have access, to have community. I remember in 2018, I didn't have that. So I have comparison of what it looks like and what it is for so many people that are going through grief, going through a shift in life. And yes, grieving is part of the process of healing with a diagnosis. I don't think like you said, we don't think about it in that way, but I was releasing a lot in that moment. I was like, "Oh my god, am I not going to be able to like my dream of like writing a book?" That was a big thing. Like I remember saying that. I have it actually videotaped. The girls took a video of me talking. I was very high on medication that they gave me. Yet I was like still kind of laughing. It was very interesting to see how I went through that process. Everyone's so different, and
Mhm.
I remember being like, am I not going to like do these things? Am I not going to be able to get the photography that I did this whole shoot after? I was like, I never did the photography with that beautiful artist I wanted to do. And I didn't write the book, and I want the house with on the beach with my man and 3 dogs. Like I was like I was like kind of grieving the ideas of the future that I wanted to create, right? And how my life will forever be different. I am not the same version of the person you met me, 2 years ago. I'm not. I am definitely different, and I will have to say just even more I'm the best version of myself that I have ever
Mhm.
been. I have because of this. But it was a decision, right? It was a decision to acknowledge the grief and the sadness of the past life and the hopes that I had, but then also what is possible even under our circumstances. Like it wasn't for me a control thing, and it wasn't a thing of me fighting, right? I've never used those words for this diagnosis or my circumstances, and I call it a diagnosis as if it's like something that is part of me but not overriding or taking control over my life, but that I'm in
Mhm.
co-creation with it, because that's a huge thing when you get diagnosed. with something like this, you really have to decide, how am I going to process this or try to process this? And so I think that, going back to your question about grieving, I think that we should start using that language around when someone is diagnosed, and therefore how we show up for them is in that
Mm,
process as well, where we're showing them and saying, I love you, I'm here for you, being there for them, just as if, that it's in many ways, I've thought about this. I feel like I am so fortunate because right now I get to receive all of the gifts while I
mm,
am alive, if that makes sense.
mm, mhm.
Versus if I didn't have time and it was something that just happened out of nowhere, and I pass, but I get to live right now and receive the gifts from my community, from my life, from those that love me, and just conversations like this feel like blessings to me, and I get to experience it now. Yeah.
Wow. And what comes to mind as you are sharing this is, so often, we take all of these things for granted. We wait until kind of like our last moments. And how has this walk shifted your dharma and your purpose? What was that next
Mhm.
iteration of you when you received the diagnosis? You allowed yourself to feel. What was that conversation like with your son? And was he able to comprehend all of that?
Daniel, thankfully, is older. I got married very young. And so I know I look 26, but my son is 26. So silly. Um, Also, what keeps me really young is that I'm such a child and I act like this. But yeah, he is it was hard. It was really hard. In the beginning, when you get a diagnosis, you're kind of in that limbo. You're trying to figure out what's the right treatment. And so I called my ex partner and my best friend till this day to kind of hold that space in case something were to happen. And then, with his dad, and making sure that Daniel had that support. And same thing with my mom, because I knew that they were going to have a hard time processing it. And I needed to come to them with, that's my relationship with them, with a plan versus them processing it with me.
Mm,
Gratefully, I have a family that I have formed in that, with that support system, in those ways, right? Because we all have the capacity to handle certain things, and I knew that they needed my guidance in that moment, and so I waited to have kind of a plan to share that. And Daniel, it was hard for him. He's a very sensitive, beautiful artist, and Daniel lives in New York City, as my mom. We live far away from each other, and I think that was hard for him. And immediately, thankfully, because my friends, again, this is like part of the bigger story, but how they were activated and started a GoFundMe, I was able to get my son and my mom to come home to see me. And there was
mm,
so much of that receiving that I was able to feel and experience during that time, that really then rippled into my family. And
wow.
it's really powerful to see how we can all activate during these moments, as you did. When I mean, you were there for me when my
Mm,
dad passed away, when this happened. I mean, you have been a constant. And so thank you. I can't,
mm,
I cannot thank you enough for showing up. It's in these moments that we know who our people are, who our
mm.
community are, who is going to be there, not only the good times, but in the
The
not
bad
so
times.
comfortable times, because it's not comfortable. It's kind of awkward if you haven't experienced it. And I know you've been through it, so you know it,
And I
right?
know it. I
You
know
know
that. I
it.
know that very well.
Yeah.
And were there people that surprised you?
Oh yeah.
And and let's dive into that, right?
Yeah.
Like, in what ways did they surprise you? Did you have unmet expectations? Were there feelings of like, whoa? And what do you say to people who may be going through this right now? Either they're going through a diagnosis, or they are perhaps maybe self isolating, and they're just kind of, they don't know how to be in this
Mhm. Mhm.
season of life. But let's start
Yeah.
with that first
We're,
one.
we all are in some sort of season, so this is a global kind of, anyone can feel this way, feeling isolated, alone, feeling as if you don't know what's next. We all feel that in one degree or another. You don't need to have a diagnosis like this to feel that. And I think that in that moment, I had no expectations because I was just so wildly in the moment and processing. The first thing I will say, I would have never expected the love. I knew people loved me, right? People were there for me, but I didn't expect that much amount of a ripple effect. I think in the first 6 months I raised $50,000 or something like that, which for me was insane, right? Like
Wow.
what's going on here? And I remember how difficult that was for me when my old Chopra family was like, "Hey, we're gonna start this," and I had a full panic attack. I didn't have a panic attack about the diagnosis; I had a panic attack about asking for help. It was very vulnerable for me coming from a family, an immigrant family. You don't ask for help. Of course, family takes care of you, but you don't share your grievance or your things or
Vulnerabilities.
with the world, right?
Yeah.
And my mom still doesn't understand the concept of the GoFundMe. She's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Mom, people just donate." Okay, so it's a generational, it's a cultural thing, and
It's a
I
shock.
she's like, "What?" And even my book, she's like, "People buy it." Yeah, I'm like, "Mom, okay." So this is what we're working with, right? We're working with this. And mom and just kind of mom and the family were just, I mean, so supported in that. And so to me, that we were all supported, not just the individual, but the collective, those that are in that support system. And so in that way, I just know how to walk into those circumstances with a different set of language and attitude towards those that are experiencing that. So in that way, I was surprised really positively. The other part of that was I was overwhelmed with the amount of help that, quote unquote, I'm making the quote unquote help, and it was help that people wanted to offer with the latest healers, the latest, opportunity, like this fruit will take away your cancer. I'm like, well, do you know what type of cancer I have? Do you know what stages in it? And it was really interesting for like a little bit of like the less calm energy of me being like, I can't process everything you're sharing with me. Can you share this with someone else? So when I can, I had someone in my network that was kind of the go-to person for like kind of advice, and so I would review it. So I learned a little bit about how to be a better supporter of other people and not necessarily think that by giving them a YouTube about that would be the greatest thing. For me, it was about me going inward to know what I actually needed versus
Mm.
outwardly, because disease and illness, it's part of our own personal healing, not just physically, emotionally, generationally. And so that's the process I did. I actually didn't do anything but take the medication, which felt right for me. I'm on a trial medication that 10 years ago didn't exist. I wouldn't be here if I that it didn't exist. So I
Wow.
wanted to see how powerful and what it did, right? With one, my positive thinking and community, and that activated, and the medication. And my
Mm.
prayer over the medication every night when I take it, which is that affirmation of understanding its power. And then later on, I started incorporating after I saw what it was doing. Then I started incorporating other things into my daily routine. But all of that to say, I saw that. And I'm grateful for that because now I know how to show up for people and I know how to share like this message with your community about how to just show up and show them the love and
Mm.
show them, let them know they're not alone. They are not alone. That's all anyone ever wants to know, that they're loved and not alone in any journey of their life. And that's the bigger part. And I have other learnings about how people didn't show up, but that's for another episode maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think, the generosity of people
Yes.
will shock us because innately people want to help and they want to support. And I'm so glad you were able to bask in that and really swim in it and receive that. And it's there's a couple of questions that I have on this, but the first is, let's talk about this art of receiving, because I think coming from being a brown girl, you have family that is like, what is happening? Why are all these people helping? Why are they starting a GoFundMe? And
Mhm.
then to just shock disbelief, you raised so much. You also have this community that began to outpour. And I saw all of the Instagram, like all of the content, and just people just taking you, whisking you away to different
On trips.
places.
It was amazing.
And it's just, and you're saying yes. And
Mhm.
I don't know about you, if it's the same thing in the culture you grew up with, but I know that for Asians, we're supposed to say no. We're
Yeah.
supposed to say no. No, it's okay. No, I don't need that. No, I don't need your help. No, I don't need that. But I
Mhm.
recognize, like, from going through the losses that I went through early on, that receivership was just as important.
Mhm.
And even when I go back to India, like, if I'm with my mother-in-law, she's like, no, you're supposed to say no when they give you something, 3 times, and then you can say yes. And then it's like, whoa, I didn't know there was like a benchmark. And so when that is circulating in the back of your head or in your mind, how then is it, how are you able to then process the art of
Mhm.
just like, yes, I
Mhm.
receive, for it to fully land in your body?
Yeah, I remember when, and by the way, this is just context for understanding like the process. So this friend says, "I'm going to start this." In theory, I was like, "Well, that sounds like a great idea," because I don't know what's happening. And then I asked to see the GoFundMe page, and when I saw the GoFundMe page, it was written by them, which they know me and love me, and something just didn't land. And then I called a Latina friend of mine that knows me, and I admire her, and I knew that she would understand me a little bit because of the cultural thing. And she said, I read it. I read it for her, and she said, in panic, and she said, it's because it's not in your own words. And that really started the process for me of writing. And I do my morning pages like, the artist way. I love it and I love writing, but I was revisiting what the story now, the old version of me, and now how I can show up in writing my story, my narrative. What does what does my life look like now? And that I was going to, in many ways, rewrite the story, right?
Mm.
And so it started there with that conversation and that outreach to that right person, right? Because I was in a panic, and when I wrote that story from my perspective, who I was and what how this could happen to anyone, and that I wanted everybody to know that it wasn't what I had planned, but that I'm here in this moment. It was a different interaction with what that receiving was, because I was able to share myself. And then I shared it on LinkedIn, and I did a very unpopular things, which is on LinkedIn, share that you are sick, right? And I got some backlash from people that I admire about that, but I did things my way because that's my process. And in that of sharing myself and then receiving, I felt as if there was that reciprocal cycle, and that beautiful, it is a beautiful thing to receive. And I never understood it until I actively said, I am going to receive everything. My friends, right after the diagnosis, I was supposed to go on a Chopra retreat, and then was trying to figure out if I was going to go. And they said, absolutely come. And then after, we went on a trip to Kauai together. Like it was
Mm.
just one thing after another. And so, in my way of receiving, and this is how I've processed it, is to show up, showing them how amazing it is to live, and to show them that I am here fully in that co-creation with them, if that makes sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I want to show them that I love them now, right? And that I'm grateful for them right now, and that in that way, people have said that to me. It's like being around you just is just feels really good, and it feels nourishing to be able to experience and be in your energy, which is amazing, because what I'm doing is just giving back. Right, it feels like I'm giving back in that way, but I am receiving. I now know how to ask for the things I need and want. I wasn't like that before. I was shy. I definitely not shy in the sense of that I don't, you know me. I'm not shy, but asking for things that in a work setting or in a relationship, it was harder for me to stand up for myself on the things that I thought that were kind of like asking beyond what was kind of necessary or ordinary. And I'm grateful for this because now I can really speak from that place of,
Mm.
hey, can we co-create together? Hey, can we be in some sort of relationship to each other and give and receive? And
Mm.
that's
And
the
I'm
gift.
Well, and I was going to even just say that I'm sure in this process, you now know who your 100 percenters are, like the people that are going to drop everything to just
Yeah.
say, all right, I got you. And probably there are those who were like you had envisioned something and it didn't go in the
Yeah.
way that you were expecting, and now I want to kind of segue into, so you started your writing journey with this GoFundMe,
Yeah.
rewriting your narrative,
Yeah.
reclaiming back
Yeah.
your story. And I want to kind of dive into and segue into the Healer's Playbook, because, first of all, what a beautiful title.
Thank
And
you.
I love how the book is on the back. I'm just going to read a love letter to the healing community and a guide for wellness entrepreneurs. My goal is to empower them to create thriving, purpose driven businesses and lives filled with meaning and joy. Like, how beautiful is that? So, tell us all about this journey. It's the most gorgeous coffee table book. And who is it for?
I really wanted to start with this book as my first book. My mission is to empower, connect, and inspire this community that's done so much for me, the healer, the teacher, the practitioner, whatever word resonates with these individuals, but in the healing arts, as I call it. It is an art form. It is an ability to connect, to inspire, to heal many people. And I thankfully had been gifted the opportunity of working with many of them during my time at Chopra, then working with the Jay Shetty Life Coaching School, with the Dharma Coaching Institute. I've had the privilege and honor of working with so many. And so I also know that there's so many out there that are still trying to figure it out, right? And you do that a lot with your school and institute around how to equip people to really show up in their power and their dharma. And this is a practical guide for them to, no matter where they are in the world, to pick it up, order it on Amazon, and be like, okay, I could have a little piece of this in this work. And I want it to be a guide, a heart opener. It is very much a love letter, and also include some practical things for them, because there's a
Mm.
lot of healers in the vata energy. They're up here, right? Like they're just in this beautiful creation, and I gently want to bring them down to earth and say, hey, like, okay, let's make some stuff practical for you and supportive, and also just remind you of why you came into this work. How can you show up authentically for yourself and your community from a grounded place, not outwardly looking, right? We see everything on social media, how to become a coach, which we love because I'm a coach as well. Do this and that, or who's doing trending, what's this platform doing, and really, like, what are you meant to do and how are you meant to show up? That's the goal with this book. And it's one that they can revisit over and over again, to journal, to explore. And I'm excited. I've just received such great feedback on it. I'm reaching out to many organizations that employ or support practitioners, as this could be a guide and a support to those people,
Mm.
for those people in their community. So that's my goal. My goal is to get the word out of the Healer's Playbook, that every practitioner knows that they are not alone, and they don't need to be alone in this process. I guess
Mhm.
because I haven't felt alone, and I don't want anybody else to feel alone. No one needs to go through that, and it's hard. I was an only child. I raised my son alone. I did a lot of things alone. And
Mm.
so I can really relate to that, and come from an immigrant family where none of my grandparents were here, right? And then in New York City, just like you see on TV, the neighborhood grandmother becomes your grandmother. I know how to build on that. I grew up in those environments where people become family, and I have a passion for humans, and I love connection and community. So this book is my love letter.
And you do that so well in the way you connect, in the way you build community, in the way your community has shown up for you. Such a class act in that for sure. And I'm so glad that this book is out because for so many people, I think it is lonely when you are starting a new venture. And like you said, even in going through this journey, the factor of being alone in that diagnosis, and this playbook is for people to build authentic relationships and authentic connections, which you have as your superpower. So I'm so glad. Where can we get the book? You said Amazon.
Currently, I self-published on Amazon. I wanted to, of course, the entrepreneur in me is like, I'm going to try this on my own and I'm going to learn
I
how to
love
do
that.
it.
So on
And
brand for you for sure.
I'm like, I'm going to learn it so then I can help other people and they can do it too. Cause I think that there's something beautiful about learning. I think that's been really powerful for me the past year and a half. And so self-published on Amazon. In time I'll have an Audible version of it, but we're slowly doing it on our, my timeline, what feels right. And so I'm excited about it being accessible to everyone. That's how you can
Mhm.
get it on Amazon. The Healer's
Amazing.
Playbook.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And now that your book baby is out,
Yeah.
and the and you come from wellness, and you also have been taking the traditional medications that have been supporting you.
Mhm.
What have been the biggest learnings of this season of healing that you want to impart to our listeners, and how they can brave their own health and their mind and their spirit and their soul?
Yeah, I think that going through the traditional route also adds, an ability to incorporate other practices into it. And I think it's so personal. So whatever feels like your soul needs is what you should do. And I think what I mentioned earlier, it is about going inward. And so right now, one of the things I'm doing is my usual morning and afternoon. Deepak that was his recipe for me. He's like, okay, you need to meditate in the morning and the afternoon, and you're gonna be fine. And I'm like, okay, great. And of course, the medication that I was prescribed was the best, he said, and so that felt really comforting coming from Deepak. And then also just the things for me in my human design, I'm not supposed to kind of do everything the same way. So I kind of look into what I need right now. So it depends on how I feel. I'm a 4/6 emotional. And so I just have to check
Mm.
in.
You
I have to
generator?
a manifesting generator.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I have to check in on what I need. And so I'm constantly doing that, just what I need in the morning. And one of the few things, I'll just kind of tangible things, my gratitude practice is always on the first thing that I do. I have my jar that every week I reflect on what is great, what's amazing. It is about our perspective on everything. We could always look for the thing that's not working. We could always look for the thing that's not exactly how we want it. But it is a huge life changer when we focus on what is positive and what is happening. And it shifts everything, right? We're changing the perspective on lack to abundance and being a blessing. This is something that I went to Michael Beckwith's church here in LA, Agape. Love him.
Love
And
him. We'll link
so
his
good.
episode in the show notes for sure.
It's so good. He was talking about the other day about like being like, oh, I need blessings in my life. We're constantly asking, asking, asking. But what if we said, how can I be a blessing for someone else? How can
Mhm.
I be the blessing? And that just is the goal. It's like, how can I show up for you? What can I do for you? That attitude is only going to bring more light, more abundance, more of people that you need in your life and the blessings that you need in your life. And so
Mm.
that again, and that gratitude practice is so important. And I have a living list. I have a list of the things I want to do, not the bucket list, the living list. And right,
Okay,
I love it.
now.
We're doing the living list. And so this past year, I wanted to basically live in Europe for a few weeks. And I did that. And I traveled for 7 weeks. I have things in the new year that I want to create. I'm writing a letter to myself as me reading it in the future. And I'm saying, I did this. Wow, you created this. And I'm doing that every year. I did it last October. A lot of the things I wrote, I did because I spoke of it as it
As
already
it happened.
happened, right? It's already happened. And having that perspective is so important. And so I keep myself very busy in a very positive way, right?
Mm.
Creating has become the book. Learning, I did my life coaching this year with Jay Shetty's school. I am going to do a coach. I'm going to learn how to do breath work, become a certified breath work.
Ooh.
Just continuing to learn and look forward. And one of my oncology therapist said that, because I said, why is it that I'm like wanting to constantly learn, and I have this desire to learn? And she said it's a very innate ability, that it's a very important thing for humans as when they're going through these transitions, to look forward to something, to have something that they're learning, and therefore imagining in a life beyond the circumstances they're in. And that was really powerful for me to hear from her. I want to live, and
Yeah.
so I am living
And you've got your
boldly,
living list.
and I have my living list.
You've
Yeah.
got your living list.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's so many amazing tools and prompts that you have in this book,
Yeah.
the Healer's Playbook. So I feel like this book is literally for anybody who's ever needed to heal from something, who is perhaps maybe a healer or wants to be a blessing for other people.
Mhm.
And I think you are the perfect person to, I mean, you are a blessing for so
Yeah.
many. And I see that every day. I see that in the people that I randomly bump into, and the amount of just joy that you spark and bring to so many people's lives. It is no wonder that this book came out with such ease. So we will link that in the show notes. And before we get into our final spill the chai round, where can we get connected with you, love?
Yeah, on social and IG, I'm Meet Darlene. That handle came from events me going to, and they're like, "You need to meet Darlene," and I kept on hearing it. I was like, "Meet Darlene, that's it."
That's it.
Wellnessculture.co, which is my company's website, and there's so much more that I'm creating with a membership for our community, and I'm excited to share that. And I'll be on my website, so follow me there. And it's a pretty amazing community of humans I have around, so I love sharing that, so
Mm, love
as
it.
you. So
Love it. Love it. All right. As we get into our final spill the chai round, so you can answer this as short as you want, as long as you want. Favorite ritual that you have in your morning? It could be your morning tea. What kind of tea is
Mhm.
it? If you are saging the air, what are you using? What is your favorite thing to begin your morning?
So one of my favorite things is I use the Open app to do my meditations. I love my friends Minosh and everybody there, so I love listening because I get to hear them. And one of the things that it's a little unusual, but I love doing when needed, again, like I check in with myself what I need, is I take baths in the morning. And
Oh, in the morning.
yes,
Okay.
baths are available anytime. They feel really luxe and luxurious when you do them at another time as well. And sometimes it's that connection to water that my soul needs, and to deeply kind of be in that warmth and energy. And it really helps me. I'll use that
Mm.
as that. And I listen. Sometimes I'll do it and have my meditation inside the bath in the morning.
Oh, I love,
Yeah.
okay, the morning
I
bath
know. You haven't
ritual.
heard that one before,
Yeah.
huh?
I have not. That's amazing. I love that. What does it mean to be brave?
Just to show up authentically as yourself,
Mm,
unapologetically, authentically, and not to compare yourself. Free. You're free.
you're free.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. What are you braving at this moment?
I'm braving what is next, as we all do, and we all are. What is next? I want to get this book to everyone it's meant to receive it and read it. And so I'm asking spirit in my meditations, in the conversations I have, that it come to be exactly as it should, and to lean into that, and that it will be. And so trusting and braving this
Mm,
process of the promotion side of birthing a baby as a book,
a baby
a
book.
baby book.
And one word that describes this season.
Simplicity is my word for the year.
Mm,
So I'll say simplicity in every way.
amazing. Ah, wow. You are just a true testament of what it is to be living and to
Mm.
literally be the embodiment and the living, breathing, incredible human that you are. And I'm so glad everyone is starting to see your light. And wow, thank you for pouring into our community.
I'm so grateful. I cannot wait to see you and hug you and
Mm,
just show you all the love that you deserve. And because you really, you are on that list. You
mm,
really know how to show up for others in these times. And I know it comes from the experiences you have and how you know how to show up. So thank you for that, and I can't wait to hug you and kiss you. And I'm excited for the community to get to know my work, and it could be of any support. I am here for anyone that needs it. I'm available to connect. I love
mm.
people.
Until next time on the Brave Table. Okay, my loves, go ahead, grab the Healer's Playbook. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at wellnessculture.co. You can go onto her Instagram at Meet Darlene on Instagram. And for other additional episodes that spark the power of healing, spark the power of shifting your mindset, tuning more into your body, tuning more into holistic practices, and perhaps other people that have been there before, I've linked 3 additional episodes to go and explore your healing journey. And Darlene has a beautiful freebie for you for any healer that's in our community or watching this. I have linked it also in the show notes today. Don't forget to be just a little bit more brave. Please share with us your favorite insight from this episode, what you are going to be sharing, and what you're going to be implementing in your own life. Perhaps maybe we can savor the slow. Perhaps maybe we can text a friend today. Perhaps maybe we can tell somebody that we love who means the world to us. Perhaps maybe we can have a brave conversation. Perhaps we can potentially slow down and smell the roses and see the joy that is around us. I hope this episode sparked you in any way. And if so, tell us below in the comments. Follow us along on Instagram at The Brave Table and at Neeta Bhushan. Tag us. There is a tiny little button at the top of your screen if you are watching this or listening to this on Spotify and or iTunes. And if you haven't already and you are watching this on YouTube, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. It really helps us grow the show more than you know. And I would be so honored to have you here week after week. And not to mention, we are giving away a 12-month free self care calendar. And all you have to do is submit your 5-star review on iTunes, and we will send it to you. Go ahead and submit it at support@neetabhushan.com. That is support at Neeta, NEETA BHUSHAN.com. And I will see you next time.